Hi everyone, welcome to Cre8 Art School online art classes. Through our art classes, students will enjoy painting, drawing, sculpture, printmaking, sewing, collage, and many more. Today, I am so excited to show you how to create a fun mobile using the salt dough we made in the first video. In the first stage of this lesson, we will roll out the clay, create fun textures and designs using various plants, and finish by cutting those out and baking them for a hard, durable finish. For the second stage of this lesson, we will be painting the clay rounds and attaching them to a stick to create a mobile. I will also show you how to add beads and feathers for added color if desired. Okay, so the supplies you will need for the first stage of this lesson are the salt dough we previously made, various greenery collected from the outdoors. Note, it is helpful to find leaves and greenery that are sturdy with a bit of texture. That way they will leave a bold imprint in the clay. You will also need a rolling pin, a round cookie cutter, the size that you like. The one I'm using is about 3 inches, but it could be a little smaller or a little bigger. Also note, if you do not have a round cookie cutter, no worries, you can create a template out of paper and use a butter knife to trace it. Also, do not feel restricted by the round shape. Feel free to create whatever shape you want. You'll also need a straw to stamp out the hole to hang it by, and a cookie sheet to place them on when you're done. To start, you will need to preheat the oven to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, we're going to take our clay out of our bag. Feel free to knead that a little bit and mix it up a little bit before you start rolling it. Now break off about half of that clay and mold that into a pancake shape, just a small one. You can do it with your fingers or your palms. Take a little flour and add that to wherever you're rolling it. You can see I use a little plastic placemat, which really helps so that it doesn't stick. Now you're just going to take your roller and flip it, roll, flip, and roll. You want that to be about a pinky's width, so not too thick. Now you're going to take your plants and just lay those out in whatever design you want. Feel free, if you want to put them right on the clay, but I like to lay them out just to get an idea of what I want it to look like. Okay, so I'm breaking apart different leaves and getting them to the size and position I want. Notice that I'm using a variety of greenery too, some that are leaves, some that are pine, some that are these little textured stems. Okay, so now I have that and I'm going to lay it down on my clay. Feel free to just push that gently into the clay to have that stay still. And do that with each one. Get it positioned similar to your design. Okay, once you finish that up, you're going to take your roller and gently roll that into the dough, and that way it'll leave a nice imprint. And now you can start taking those off one by one, and you can just put those to the side because you can reuse those whenever you want. So don't feel like you have to throw those out. You can definitely use those as many times as you want. Now you're going to take your cookie cutter and position it where you want, where you like the design the best, or you can take your paper template and your knife and just start carving that away, or take your cookie cutter, give that a good press, take off that excess clay, and gently pick up that round and place it on your cookie sheet. Okay, you can shape that a little bit with your fingers if you need to. Now you're going to take that straw and just place a hole right in the top of that round. You want that a little bit of distance from the edge so that it does not break when you hang it. Okay, so now you're just going to repeat that and make as many rounds as you want. Now you have your rounds and they're ready to bake. So what you want to do is put them in the preheated oven and bake them until they're dry and hard, about 2 hours. Make sure they cool completely before you start to paint them. Okay, your rounds are cooked and cooled and ready to paint, so you'll need watercolors. Variety of colors is always nice. You can always use acrylic or tempera on a paper plate. You can even use food dye if you needed to. Paintbrush, any size will work. A cup of water. A stick from outside. You'll want it pretty long so you can hang all those rounds from there. String that's on the thinner side so that you can get the beads over them. Colored feathers if you'd like. And also the beads if you'd like. These are both optional. And notice the holes are a little on the bigger side so you can get those over the string. Now we're ready to paint. So I'm going to show you the original sample with the purple and the blue, the orange with the red, and the green with the turquoise, just for some ideas. Obviously ours is blank at this point, and you can choose whatever colors you want. I've got my watercolors and my acrylic. I'm going to use either or. So if you're going to do watercolor, do all watercolor. If you're going to do acrylic, do all acrylic. Okay, I'm going to start with this orange color. I always like to start with the lighter color first and then add a darker color on top. If you're going to use your acrylic, just put a little bit of acrylic on your plate and add a couple drops of water to that. Keep adding until you get that to a pretty watery consistency. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my watercolors. I really like using watercolors on these, and I'm going to paint that first coat of an orange. If it gets on a little bit too thick, just add more water. If you want it a little bit more thicker, add less water. Totally up to you. So you can pick this up and paint, or you can leave it on your plate, whatever's more comfortable. So I'm going to just finish that up. Don't forget to get those sides. You can just hold it in place with your finger. Get all those sides nice and covered. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're gently going to flip it over and we're going to paint that other side. Don't worry if it's a little wet. We'll put it on a little bit of an angle to dry, and that way both sides will dry at the same time. So just get a nice good coat on there. And again, if you want it a little bit darker, add less water. If you want it a little bit lighter, add more water. Okay, you're all set. Now we're going to let that dry as you paint the other ones. The first coat is all dry now, and we're ready to put on that second darker coat. So we started with that orange. Now we're going to go with this slightly darker red color to fill in all the plant imprints. So as you can see, I'm just kind of tracing those imprints, just putting a little bit of red in there and adding a little bit of depth to the piece. So we're just going to do that throughout each one. Just take your time and just add. If for some reason at any point you get a little too much on there, just take a little paper towel and you can dab that off. And you can always wet it and even take more off if you need to. So don't worry if it gets somewhere where you don't want it to. Okay, so now I'm just going to add a little bit of water all around to help that blend. We'll let that dry and then we'll add the string and the beads and the feathers. Okay, so our rounds are dry and ready to be hung. So what we're going to do is first measure our string and cut it to size, about 24 inches. It's always nice to have it a little longer rather than shorter. Okay, so through the hole, and we'll do our first knot and our second knot. We always love to double knot this just to keep it real secure. Then you can cut off that excess. Okay, we're ready to then string the beads. So I picked out 3 red beads and 3 orange beads. I thought it'd be fun to do in every other pattern. So I'm going to do 1 red bead, then 1 orange bead, and continue that, but feel free to do whatever pattern you want or no beads at all. Also remember, you can make beads out of clay if you want to, and that way you have your very own homemade beads. Now we're just going to secure that first little top bead. But hold on, we've got a little curved string, so we want to straighten that out. So we're going to put that through that top bead, and that just keeps everything in place. So when it's hanging, the beads don't shift around. Okay, now we're going to add our feather. You can always find a feather outside, or even a leaf too. A leaf would be really pretty to add in there. Okay, now we're going to hang that onto our stick. So figure out the length that you want it to hang down and tie that first knot again, and then that second knot. Okay, now we're going to trim that up, take off the excess string, and you finish. Now do the other rounds. As you can see in my sample, I cut the strings at different lengths so that they hang at different levels. It just creates a little bit of a fun look. I also added a string on the top to hang it from. All right, we're all done. I hope you enjoyed this. See you soon.